We're out at the field and we just got finished flying the FlyZone Super Cub Select Series. And we've gone through our 5x5 review, scoring it on both model characteristics and also pilot experience. So we'll go ahead and start and go through point by point and see how the Super Cub matched up to the rest of the fleet out there.
We'll start with build as advertised, and that we gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Now, Kurt, you built this plane, so explain a little bit what the rating was, why the rating.
Yeah, it was an RXR version, so there wasn't that many things to do overall. The servos were already installed, and the speed control, and the motor, and things like that. So the build as advertised, I'll look at it as, if you look at the instructions that are included with it, and you look at the actual model you get. Now, first of all, we got a different battery sent by the manufacturer for us to test the plane with. And that was an 11.1 volt, 1300 milliamp pack, which is sizably bigger, physically sized battery than the original one that was, I think, was built. The plane was built around or built within mine. So it didn't fit. You could squeeze it into the battery compartment, but then the hatch wouldn't even begin to fit, the tab on the hatch. So there's a modification on our website at 2bfly.com. If you look under the reviews under the FlyZone Select Series, the Super Cub, you'll see that battery hatch modification. You'll also see another modification, not a modification, but a building tip, and that's on the wing struts. You're going to have to bend the tabs or the tips of the wing struts up a little bit or flatten them out to be able to get them to match the actual wing surface. Not a big thing. That's a typical builder's kind of tip. Yeah. But on the nose, the cowl, there's weights, lead weights behind the nose cowl. One thing I noticed, and you noticed as well, Rob, when we pulled this thing out of the box, it was heavy.
Oh.
It's not too heavy to fly. You'll see it's a fully functioning model.
Yeah.
But when you pick up a plane and it feels heavy, you know it's going to impact a couple things. One, flight characteristics. It's going to be a little bit of a lead pig to come into the ground.
Yeah.
It's going to come in or go through its glide slope pretty aggressively, and it's going to be a long run out takeoff. So, giving it a fair shot, no preconceived notions at all. But then looking at the instructions, there's already lead weight on the nose, and they tell you you're going to have to add weight to it, even more weight. And when you pull out of the box and it feels so heavy, it's like, I'm not adding an ounce of weight. So it worked out better that they sent the bigger battery, because whenever you build a model or you make a modification, you need nose weight or you need tail weight, try to make it functional weight.
Sure.
Don't add dead lead. It's going to just add weight to the model. If you can shift the battery forward or shift the battery backwards or do
go
something.
with a little bit bigger battery.
Go with
you can go with a larger milliamp battery. That benefits a couple things, the weight plus the runtime.
Absolutely.
So.
And check your overall model weight if you aren't exceeding the recommendations for the actual wing loading itself by the weight of the model. They could put a bigger battery. Kind of think unconventionally there. So we saw that, thought, well, good, bigger battery. Another thing was the prop spinner itself. It's a little rubber prop spinner, which would easily have been lost. There's no instructions to glue it in place at all. So we went ahead and used some silicone and put some silicone on the end of the threads and inserted that rubber nose cone piece. You're going to want to do that on yours as well, or you can kiss it goodbye probably after the first flight. It just very loosely fits on the front. So those things all kind of detracted from the build as advertised. I kind of got the feeling, and this is me just assuming, that maybe when they built the model, they went with one setup, and then later on tested it after all the scale details were added to it and thought, we need to bump up the battery a little bit, or we need to do some different things here. The resulting plane flies very stable. We'll cover that on pilot experience, but there's definitely a deviation in the build instructions from what you're going to want to do when you put yours together.
Finish, we gave it a 5 out of 5. Now, this is a scale plane. It's,
and it's so detailed for a foam. It's the most detailed foam plane you're going to get your hands on.
Very much so, and it definitely appeals to the scale enthusiasts.
Absolutely.
Power, we gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
And I think the power would be fine if the thing didn't have so much weight.
Well, it's got a lot of thrust. This motor setup and the prop setup, it's surprising how hard it pulls, but then you see why it needs to.
On the power, well, we went ahead and played around the field a little bit, and we switched over to an 8x6 prop from the original shipped 8x4. That 8x6 gave us what I thought was a little better handling, better low-speed thrust for the climb outs, and it flew like a Cub.
Well, this may sound silly to say this, but watching you take off with that 8.6 versus that 8.4, the plane looked lighter.
Yeah,
when it was flying, it looked lighter.
I took off with the 8.4. I was full throttle, and I was wondering where the rest of it was.
Exactly.
It's like, this is going to be a flying on the wing experience. So I just straighten it out and give it everything she's got, and it pulls out. So 8x6, I think, felt a little more comfortable.
Yeah. Ground handling, 4.5 out of 5. The tail wheels definitely works.
A lot of throw.
Yeah, definitely. The rudder, you've got a tremendous amount of throw.
4.5 out of 5. If you compare this to other radio-controlled electric foam airplanes, it doesn't score that high because it's a Cub. Cubs have narrow wheels. The wheelbase is so narrow on them, you're just all over the place. So you're going to want to be real careful. And without dual rates on that rudder, with the included tactic radio system, you get a lot of throw. So be real careful on your takeoffs and landings, and really work to keep that rudder nice and straight.
Durability, we gave it a 4.5 out of 5. We had a little situation trying to take it off with that 8.4 to where we had a prop strike, and actually it didn't nose completely over on us, but it hit pretty hard.
It wing tipped a little bit on takeoff, and it handled it quite well. It scarfed the paint a little bit, but that was it. No other structural damage.
No, it really didn't do much. It did nothing to the motor mount or anything like that, so we were impressed. Okay, for the pilot experience, we're going to start with flight as advertised. We gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, 4 out of 5. It flies like a Cub.
Flies like a very heavy Cub.
It flies like a Cub that has all your camping gear for the weekend lake trip and all your friends that are you're at capacity, but it flies like a loaded Cub.
Yeah.
Like you got a bunch of stuff in it. So and with it being electric and not gas, that weight doesn't change to the flight, so you don't have that benefit of the last quarter of the tank or third of the tank, getting it nice and light. So but it's a Cub. It has a lot of wing area. It has a lot of lift, and but not quite. It's a flying on the wing type of Cub. So
yeah. Field size, we went with a large park or field.
Yeah, it's heavy, so you're going to get a little more run out than you see with some other Cubs, but it'll slow down all right for you. Once you get your skills up, you can maybe take it to a medium-sized park. But for starters, you're going to give it some run out. So go out to a large park or a flying field.
Portability, we gave it a 3 out of 5. Now, Kurt, you had mentioned something to me about the portability earlier, that the wings do not come off very easily.
No, these wing struts screw into the landing gear, and it's not a quick change. It's not like you can just pop the wing off. There's one screw that fastens it underneath the scale antenna, so the wing could come off very quickly. Just take the aileron leads off and you'd be ready, but with the wing struts being fastened in the landing gear, it's not a quick pop it apart and throw it in the truck kind of thing. So it's more intentional, and even when you do pop those, they're held in place very solid, so you have to flex them to try to get them around the airframe or scoot it back. But in order to actually release this main wing, you have to bring it forward. So it's you're going to be you'll do a lot of damage to the foams that you're going to do.
Well, another thing worth mentioning too is that yellow paint tends to rub off pretty easy.
Yeah, it's all over in the back of my vehicle.
Yeah, so there you go. There you go. All right, so it's portability 3 out of 5. Skill level, we went with intermediate. And I think one of the reasons it got an intermediate rating, and don't get us wrong, I mean, this plane flies, there's no doubt. It definitely flies. It looks good in the air while it's flying. I think the thing is, we were both just a little surprised and a little disappointed at how heavy it is.
Yeah, that's really the thing. They should be able to pull a little bit of weight out of the center of that fuselage. And in doing so, then, if they kill some of that tail weight or some of that fuselage weight, you won't have to weight the front or worry so much about the front end. So
I think if there was definitely some
weight reduction somehow.
Yeah, some weight reduction of some sort somehow, this plane probably would have scored higher all around.
Absolutely.
Really, because it is a nice looking plane. They did a beautiful job on the scale details. It looks good sitting there. It looks the part. It looks the part in the air.
I think if your focus is to fly a very scale looking, or as scale as you can get a foam plane to look, a very scale looking foam Super Cub, this is a good model for you. If that's what your focus is, you really want to fly that thing and you want to see it in the air.
Yeah.
If you're flying it purely for the flight experience, if you're a stick person and you really don't care what the plane looks like, but you want it to handle that graceful, high speed.
You're not going to fly a Cub to begin with if you're that type of person.
Probably typically, because again, the landing's a little bit tricky on them. But even as a Cub's usually a real light, lofty, feathery, floaty plane to fly, and this is more like a loaded Cub. So. It requires a little more skill, and really understand it's when you get it down at the ground. On takeoffs and landings, it requires a little more skill, especially with the factory setup radio. So.
A heavier plane requires more skill anyhow.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And when it's a smaller plane that's heavier, I think it definitely...
Yeah, usually we're complaining about the weight on small park flyers because you lose some of that stability. In this case, with a narrow wheelbase and more weight, it kind of gets a little more to handle.
Yeah.
But again, watch the video and judge for yourself. Yeah. It's certainly a fully functional plane.
Sure.
It looks great. Has good run times. Pretty durable, and it looks like a really nice Super Cub.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our review of the FlyZone Select Series Super Cub. If you want to see the full review, go to our website at 2bfly.com, look under reviews, and you'll see it listed. If you have any questions that remain unanswered, you can go to our website and look in the lower left corner of any screen, and you'll see the Ask To icon. Click on that, it'll send us a message, and we'll get right back with you. I'm Kurt Gornick with Two Brothers Hobby.
And I'm Rob Gornick. Thanks for watching.